I'm going to look at the performativity of race, the way, perhaps, or not, the way we look at the performativity of gender. And I'm going to look at transracialism in relation to performance and questions of appropriation. Many scandals have erupted in last year about cultural appropriation, racial appropriation. It was Frantz Fanon who, in the 1950s, critiqued first the negative effects of white European imperialism on perceptions of the black body. He called it epidermalization of blackness, the inscription of meaning onto skin color. Like Harvey Young, in his groundbreaking book, Embodying Blackness, I ask, can there be a performativity and performance of race that challenges racializing projections the way gender is also performative? Harvey Young says, black is always an imprecise projection or designation. It is an enigma wrapped in the darkest and deepest subliminal fantasies of Europe and America's cultural identity, as Henry Louis Gates Jr. observed, quoted by Young. The mystery of blackness, which manages to become a fact through repeated deployment across a range of bodies, encourages the misidentification of individual bodies as the black body, says Young. The black body is who we see from that outside perspective. It is the imagined and yet highly misrecognizable figure who shadows the actual unseen body. The important point, which Fanon understood, according to Young, is that the invisibility and misrecognizability of black bodies structure experience. Same way, like I cannot embody the experience of Arab women, even though I'm from that part of the world. I'm not ethnically Arab, and I don't identify with the category Arab women in the way I am embodied. From this structured experience, it is difficult to parse the differences within the imbricated realities of race, culture, gender, and class. For Young, despite the working of intersectionality and the intertwined nature of identity categories, like sociologist Patricia Hill Collins, Young acknowledges that there are moments in which phenomenal blackness assumes a more active role in individuated experience than any of these other identity markers. Hill Collins writes, in some situations, gender, age, social class, and education do not matter, while race maintains its potency as a marker, of course. So to return to the question of performativity of race, can we apply the same analysis to transracialism as that of transgenderism? The biggest case, of course, is that of Rachel Dolezal. You know, everybody heard the story. Dolezal, who was the head of the Spokane chapter of NAACP, identified and lived as a self-proclaimed black woman. In 2015, a controversy erupted when a reporter from the Huffington Post investigated and exposed her origin as not having any black roots or any African ancestry. Her story gained notoriety at the same time as the Caitlyn Jenner, the TV personality and a former Olympian, as a transgender person made it to the cover of Vanity Fair. In 2016, Dolezal legally changed her name to Nkechi Amari Diallo. She claims since then that she's transracial, and one should be able to change one's race, according to her, in the same way one changes one's sex. Since Dolezal, in 2017, a white German model, Martina Adam, claimed to have transitioned to become a black woman after undergoing a chemical tanning procedure. In England, in 2018, it emerged that an artistic director, Anthony, who calls himself Anthony Taharka Ekundayo Lennon, who's Anthony Lennon originally, has benefited from Arts Council funding dedicated to artists of color. It was revealed that he's not black and he has no African ancestry either, but he described himself as African born again. Rebecca Tuvel's article in 2017 in defense of transracialism also erupted in a huge controversy in the feminist journal Hypatia. Tuvel was not interested in the details of Dolezal's case and claims that she was interested in its structure. Essentially, Tuvel believes that, quote, since we should accept transgender individuals' decision to change sexes, we should also accept transracial individuals' decision to change races. Of course, one can see the problems with this position. Appropriating race and the term transracial is problematic because transracial originally referred to the acts of adopting a child of one race into an ethnic group that is not its original roots or ethnic group. Unlike gender, which is assigned at birth, race or ethnicity is rooted in ancestry, cultural history, belonging to a community, collective and intergenerational trauma. Appropriating race and picking and choosing what you want to belong to, a la Joseph Boyden, is not the question. The question is who adopts you and who claims you. Picking a racial identity without the burden of discrimination and history of oppression and benefiting from our organizations created to empower and help these communities is problematic, to say the least. But back to the question of performativity. The two major scandals that I just want to remind you of that happened last year or couple years is Robert Lepage's series of jazz songs called Slav or Slave, where they plan to do it at the Montreal Jazz Festival with no input from the African Canadian community or so slave songs performed by white performers. That was shut down pretty quickly. And the other project was Kanata, which he designed with Théâtre du Soleil, Ariane Mnouchkine's director, most famous French director. It also shut down. The production didn't go through in Canada, and they ended up doing it in 2018 in Paris. And they changed it into Kanata, the controversy. And Ariane Mnouchkine claims that she has the right to speak. Theater actors have the right to embody anybody. They can be anything. And they can appropriate any, because theater is based on transformation. So wherever there's power imbalance, there's cultural appropriation. Of course, there's truly offensive appropriation, such as Lepage's Slav and Lepage and Mnouchkine's Kanata. And these two projects kind of came in and then disappeared into kind of oblivion, even though Kanata was produced in France. As theater artists, how do we do theater with an awareness, on the one hand, of the community's concern, and on the other hand, the critique of the argument presented by Mnouchkine that the art of the actor is precisely to become the other? Or Lepage's dismissal when he says, when it is forbidden to identify with someone else, theater becomes meaningless. Meaningless for whom? Is there evident an ethics of representability? Is there such a theater that can be at the same time a guarantor of meaning making for disenfranchised communities, a safe and affirmative space for racialized and gendered identities without resorting to silencing, occupying, or appropriating? How do we undo this need and desire to own other people's stories? We need to remember as well that other people's narratives, we also need to remember that as well, when we tell other people's narrative, we are missing or completely ignoring a whole set of histories and concerns. And as we do that, this is happening, say, in Canada, when theater or other cultural manifestations appropriate, say, indigenous narratives. This is going on as women are still going missing and pulled lifeless from lakes and rivers in Winnipeg, for example, and Thunder Bay, or found dismembered in seedy hotels in Edmonton. As the government continues to peddle reconciliation, there was a meme recently I saw of Trudeau. The statement goes, "Reconciliation is my safe word." Let's remember that there will be no reconciliation as long as we do not ask ourselves to think about the relationship between cultural appropriation, white supremacy, and racism, and stop cloaking the debate in this veneer of artistic freedom and free speech. Thanks.